saying, we have a client who wants to buy your house. Really? Yeah, they're trying to find a place in Coburg, only Coburg. Can't find any place.
Oh, we've got the,
Really? Marcia.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Trying to
wondering.
find a
that.
place in
In her
Coburg, only Coburg.
newsletter, you'd
Yeah.
talk about. Oh, we've got the.
Really?
Two
Marcia.
bathroom, yeah.
Yeah.
four bedroom.
Trying to find a place in Coburg, only Coburg.
Max of this amount. Oh, we've got the.
Really?
Two bathroom.
So they came over
Yeah,
to look
four
at a house and
bedroom,
trying to find a
wondering
place. We were not really ready yet, but.
I will call the February 10th, 2026 Urban Renewal Meeting to order at 6 p.m. Tonight's meeting is being recorded as well as live streamed. Please be sure your microphones are on and are close enough to you that you can be heard. So Sammy, would you call roll, please?
Yes, so we are in the URA, so we are directors tonight. So we have Director Bell,
Here?
Director Bowman,
Here.
Engelbretson,
Here.
Lehman,
Here.
Myers,
Here.
Smith,
Here.
and Wells.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any proposed changes to the agenda?
We do not. You will notice that I did attach the financial report onto the back of the document, and then I updated one in there. So
Okay, thank you. And is there anyone signed up for public comment?
there is not.
Our business items are acceptance of the URA, the Urban Renewal Agency fiscal year 2024-25 audit. And we will have a staff report from Mr. Hanks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you.
Evening.
Yes, so this is one of the 2 times a year that at a minimum that we meet as an urban renewal agency. And on the agenda, as the mayor noted, is the annual audit. It is the URA is called a component unit of the city. So it's not a completely independent entity, but it's also not part of the city budget or the regular audit. It's a component unit by definition. And so for that reason, the audit of the URA is separate and distinct from the audit of the city. So we'll be talking about the city audit in the next meeting when you switch back to counselor hats. So the audit for the URA happens really concurrently with the city's audit. And I've got a little slide deck we can go through and when we're talking about the city audit, but this follows that same pattern. It's much more straightforward and relatively simple in that there are it's probably single digits in the number of transactions that happen in a year, and some years 2 probably. The primary function of the URA as it stands is to be the recipient of the tax increment financing for the urban renewal district boundary. And then those revenues are moved. They're not transferred since they're separate entities. They're actually moved from the URA to the city's wastewater fund to pay for approximately 40% of the city's debt service on wastewater. So you'll see that there's not a whole lot of transactions involved, and like I said, the audit is fairly straightforward. So there isn't a whole lot in the way of internal controls. I mean, we have the same protocol of all of the process procedures. It is a separate general ledger, so it actually Springbrook, our financial software, it is a wholly separate and distinct. When we issue checks, it's on a different check stock and it's a separate bank account. So it's all completely separated. As you'll see in the packet, starting on the packet page 7 is the MD&A, and kind of highlighting some of the basics of the audit, cash investments and all of that. Our strategy with it is to, the revenues come in November and December with property tax, and then we move that money in kind of in one fell swoop, primarily into the wastewater fund. So its cash flow comes and goes fairly quick, and then we let the next year happen and keep going until it reaches its maximum indebtedness here in about 3 years. Not indebtedness, maximum
Contribution.
Thank you. Perfect. Yes, because it doesn't hold debt. The
Pretty
city,
good.
the city holds the debt, not the URA. Some URAs hold debt. This URA does not hold the debt. So with that being said, glad to answer any questions about the audit that you might have.
Like a clean audit.
Yes.
Layman,
Just a small item.
Director Layman.
So this is the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025.
Correct.
Should the district officials reflect June 30th, 2025 or the prior fiscal year?
Where are you looking for the district
Page
officials?
3. Yeah, it would be a difference with the finance director.
Yeah, I did talk with him about that. I think there was at the time they did this, we did not have we were in between. I think that was on the finance director slot. The majority of the fiscal year was operationally managed through that person. So that's who they chose to put on there. And actually, you'll see John Fox listed because he was a city councilor for a portion of that fiscal year as well.
It's usually sort of behind. if
lags,
I recall
right.
correctly.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Directors?
So,
I would,
I'm just going to mention it. It's in my slide deck, but we're using it at the city one. But the motion typically is an acceptance of the audit, acceptance or acknowledgement of the audit, as it's it's just a kind of a concurrence that it is completed and meets the requirements, and you have been provided a document.
so at this time, I will entertain a motion to accept the Urban Renewal Agency audit for fiscal year 2024-25.
I move to accept the Urban Renewal Agency audit for fiscal year 2024-2025.
Motion by Director Bauman. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Director Myers to accept the URA audit as presented for fiscal year 2024-25. Any discussion? None? All for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes to accept the audit unanimously. That's 7-0. Because in this case, I get to vote. I always have to remind myself. And we have the financial report, and Mr. You want to go over that?
Yeah, I probably, what I've already described pretty much covers that. This is the 6-month financial report for the URA. And as you see on page 3, we do have the expenditure noted. Our operationally, I think year to year, it's happened at a different time of when the actual movement of the revenue of the property tax increment out of the URA into the city books is done oftentimes May or June as a housekeeping. We're starting the operational objective is to have that in at the half year mark. So as soon as we have the cash balances in the accounts that allow for that to move, we're going to move it early, just so all of the financial reports for January on through the end of the fiscal year, council, and we don't have to keep reminding, oh yeah, that it's gonna be over there at this time. So we're moving it as soon as we're cash flow wise able to be done. And we did move that right at the end of December. The other item to note is there was budget approval for some consulting work that we're still in the process of procuring up to 25,000 for URA specific consulting for estimating kind of general fund implications when the URA closes out, and also any guidance to council and staff on how to go about closing it out if there is anything particular from a Oregon revised statutes or otherwise that we need to be cognizant of. We still have time, but I think the idea with our general fund revenue conversations was to at least procure some services to get a third party verified estimate of the change in general fund allocations with the removal of the URA in a few years. So that's yet to be done. So that's an expense that between now and the end of the fiscal year will likely show up in the financials.
Have you been able to interview any possible?
I haven't. It's a very niche sort of thing. I've talked with several consultants that that are close to this category. They do municipal finance work. They don't URA work. So I've got it narrowed down. Everybody's pointing me the same direction. I have not made contact with the firm yet. I've sent out an intro email. So in the process of figuring that out. I think historically there's been one or two consultants throughout the state that do the lion's share of municipal work in urban renewal. So we'll see if we can get on their docket.
May be very busy.
It may be.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know how many cities have urban renewal.
Yeah, there's quite a few, a lot of different types, and different reasons for being and existing. So, yeah, but once they're established and if they're, if they're complete and just kind of in our maintenance mode, they don't have a whole lot of active stuff, but, yeah, it can get complicated quick. So it's good to have an expert that does that stuff all the time.
Okay, our next agenda item is the financial, well, no, we talked about that, the financial report. You just finished that. We have the minutes for June 10th, 2025. So I'll think back to those. If you have any changes for those, then please let us know. Through them, and I did not note any changes. Are no changes or suggestions, I entertain a motion to approve the June 10th, 2025 URA minutes.
Director Bell, I move to approve the minutes of the June 10th, 2025 Urban Renewal Agency meeting for the city of Coburg as presented.
There's a motion by Director Bauman. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Linda Brutson to approve the minutes of the June 10th, 2025 URA meeting. Is there any discussion? None? All for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion passes 7-0. Accept the minutes as presented for the June 10th 5 URA meeting. Okay, well, we've finished the URA piece and we will move right along to the city council meeting. I will
Mayor, can you adjourn?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you very much. I will adjourn tonight's February 10th, I almost said June 10th, February 10th, 2026 URA meeting at 6:14. And I will call the February 10th, 2026 City Council meeting to order at 6:14. Tonight's meeting is also being recorded and live streamed. Counselors, please make sure that your microphones are on and close enough to you that your voice can be heard and recorded. Please join me in the pledges of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tammy, would you please do roll call?
Mayor Bell,
Here.
Counselor Bowman,
Present.
Counselor Engelbretson,
Here.
Counselor Lehman,
Still here.
Counselor Myers,
Here.
Counselor Smith,
Here.
Counselor Wells,
Here.
and there is quorum.
Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is mayor's comments. I do want to remind you of the president's regional meeting, the LOC meeting, and that's going to be this Friday. the 13th, and that will be in Albany. So if anyone's interested or able to join us, I think I will be going, and I believe Mr. Hens will also. That's usually, it's a little different format this time. They'll be looking for feedback and comments from us as members on revising the Oregon municipal policy. And we will also have the opportunity to meet the new president of the LOC. She comes from Fossil.
Yep.
Correct. Earl McInnes. So that should be an interesting meeting. I do want to share with you some information that I found very, very interesting. And thank you, Sammy, for giving this to me. It's a strategic planning document from 1997. And I just want to go very quickly, won't dwell on any of these topics, but I want you to know there was a lot of, this was a 6-month program, and it was funded by a grant. So they're community issues, as they stated, and this was with a lot of community input. So the things that they were focusing on at that time are identified as issues for water solution for Pioneer Valley Estates, intergovernmental agreements with Lane County and City of Eugene, comprehensive plan or periodic review, building ties between the industrial and the residential sectors of Coburg, identifying funds for restoring existing homes, revising the Coburg Code to ensure preservation of historic character. Seeing some patterns here. And this was almost 30 years ago. Integrate public and community issues into planning and budget decisions, including public health and safety, fire and police, Willamette Street water improvements, downtown commercial revitalization plan, development of a strategy for increasing low-income multifamily housing, review of recreation district for community center and library, expand and update the city's water system, citywide sewer system. Now I think we can cross that one off. So we did get that done. Stormwater system, City Hall improvements or relocation. I think at that time, I think we relocated to this building. No?
Not till 2013.
Well, but from 97, so in
Yes.
2013, we
Yes.
relocated to this building. But again, you're absolutely correct. It took from 1997 to 2013 before we were able to do that. And review of strategic plan on a yearly basis.
Who was the mayor and administrator back then?
I believe the mayor was Judy Volta.
No,
If I'm
no,
not
it
mistaken.
wasn't. It was not. I read that.
Mary Golddigger or Mike Bean.
Really,
Uh,
back that far? Okay.
Was Sammy here?
I think this predates all of us. I saw who the mayor was. I'll have to come back to you on that probably. Oh, wait a minute. Here it is. Let's see. The mayor was Chuck Stolen.
Hmm.
I don't know Chuck. Anybody know Chuck?
I certainly do.
I do.
Right, see, some people do. I do not.
He succeeded Mary Golddigger.
Ah,
He was the council president at the time.
So that, I thought that was absolutely fascinating. That many of the things that we're still working on, struggling with, were present almost. But we have made progress. And I'm very pleased about that. I do want to remind each of us on council that when when we say, when we discuss who makes the decisions or who's the boss, you're the boss. And when we have discussions, staff can guide us and give us information, but we're the decision makers. And I think that that's really an important distinction. Decisions are ours to make. We can ask staff to give us more information, or we can make valid decisions. But staff does not create or accept the budget. They can give us again that information, create the document, but it's ours to accept it. So I just needed to share those thoughts with you, but I thought you'd find interesting. So that's it. That's all I have for my mayor's comments. You'll be happy to know that. And now we have the agenda review. Tammy, are there any proposed changes to?
Yeah, we do. Item number 3 is being pulled from the agenda, the minutes for January 31 council retreat. They're not quite finished, so they'll be back in March. And then the financial report will be in March as well.
We do have items in the red folder, and that's the administrative report.
Yes.
That is correct.
Right. So moving on along. Approval of the consent agenda. Any item in the consent agenda can be removed for consideration by any member of the during such request. None. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor Bell, I offer a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion by Councilman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Bells to approve the consent agenda with as presented. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. The motion passes unanimously. That's 6-0. Get to vote. Only in the URA. Only when we're directors. Okay, next agenda item is, do we have any special guests tonight? We do not. Have Ms. Dompe here, representing Main Street, and we have a community member here. And could you introduce yourself?
Hi there, my name is Ed McGee.
And you're on Budget Committee. Yes, I thought I recognized your face. Thank you
Keep
for
track
being-
of everything going on.
Yeah, well, that's good. Everybody needs to be involved and keep track of, certainly of finances, not lots of other things. So we have a second reading of ordinance A 163-W, an ordinance adopting the Oregon Criminal Code, Oregon Uniform Controlled Substances Act, Oregon Liquor Control Act, and the Oregon Motor Vehicle Code repealing ordinance A-163-B. So we held that first reading and public hearing on January 13th, 2026. Are there any questions for staff? Entertain a motion.
Maribel, I move to adopt ordinance A-163 W. An ordinance adopting the Oregon Criminal Code, Oregon Uniform Controlled Substance Act, Oregon Liquor Control Act, and the Oregon Motor Vehicle Code, and repealing ordinance A-163 V.
I second.
We have a motion by Councilman Myers and a second by Almond to adopt ordinance A-163 W, and ordinance adopting the Oregon Criminal Code, Oregon Uniform Controlled Substances Act, Oregon Liquor Control Act, and the Oregon Motor Vehicle Code repealing ordinance A-163 V. New council discussion. Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, 6-0.
I have a question.
Yes,
Just for clarification, can you please remind me the difference between an ordinance and a resolution?
yeah.
Either way.
So I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, go for it.
Ordinance is a law. So it's a law of the city. So there can be violation charges if you don't follow a city ordinance. A resolution are more policy based. So, or affirmations, something you want firmly on the record, but it's not a law.
Rates and fees, another example by resolution, establishing the ability to charge is an ordinance, but then the actual amounts and the fees are resolutions. Yeah.
Thank you.
So moving on to resolution 2026-06, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2026-2027 capital improvement resolution. Great example.
And we have a motion for that then?
We will after the staff report.
Okay.
From Mr. Hanks.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is the annual update of a 5-year capital improvements plan. So we've labeled it as the current or the upcoming fiscal year, but it covers a period in the document itself. It covers a period of 5 years. This was an item that we presented in a kind of a work session format to council on January 20th, excuse me. And then also the Finance Audit Committee was presented with the same worksheet document and had a brief discussion about it on the January 28th meeting. So we at that work session, we went through in kind of line by line about the projects and kind of some strategy, each of the funds about why. The staff report, I'll just go through real briefly in the staff report to hit some of the highlights, and I'd be glad to answer any other questions. Some of the significant changes from the prior year, we obviously removed projects that were completed, and it's always nice to recognize that we have completed projects each year. Pavilion Park expansion improvements was on there for several years for different phases. The Loop Path number 4 extension that's also included, it was a combined project and included North Industrial paving. And we've altered the Coleman Collector Phase 1 project. The engineering design was done in the prior year. So what's remaining in this one is the majority of the construction cost that'll be happening this spring, summer. The actual bid award will be presented to council consideration next month. We reorganized the projects in the water fund to kind of categorize or filter between planned projects that are able to be cash funded, that are necessary and are just ongoing replacements, primarily water lines that really aren't dependent on the outcome of an update to the water master plan. Those just need to be done regardless. And the size and scale of those is we're able to just kind of tick those off as we go and match them up with street projects where we can and just kind of cover those. The other category we broke into in the water are items that really need to have an update to the water master plan done before we really know which ones are the most important for our system. Is it capacity? Is it storage? Is it more supply capacity similar? And is it more additional well? And then what's the timeline for those? So those are a little less certain. They're still in the plan. We know those need to be done. They're less certain about what order. And then obviously they're less certain about where the funding would come from. So we're at a point in the water projects that we'll finish the current projects. We'll finish up with the loans that we have now that we're drawing down disbursements. That'd be well 3 at Stallings primarily. And then we will be kind of slowing down and on the water side of things and waiting and doing a water master plan update. So we broke those two, I think, to make a little more sense of of what is dependent on the water master plan and what is independently able to move forward.
Can I just ask a question? So that's when it's broken down, local funding rate revenue, that's
Yes.
the ones that you're saying are the ongoing projects and that we will just.
Yep.
Okay.
Regardless of an update to the master plan, it's very clear that those need, those are older lines and pipes that need to be replaced with older materials. Yeah, exactly. We consolidated a number of the street projects that we can accomplish via targeted dig out and overlay rather than full street reconstruction. That's kind of the major maintenance that we talked about both at the retreat and at the last work session. And we updated and reprioritized the projects a little bit to improve alignment with the external funding sources, knowing that we really have targeted opportunities to apply for ODOT small city allotment funding opportunity, as well as the MPO STIP cycle. That's in every other cycle. So really kind of timing those out to match the application and approval process for those external fundings. Otherwise, we're just out of sync with when we want to do a project and when there's possibly available external funding. And then we removed a number of projects that really are not forecasted to have any adequate funding to accomplish within the 5-year horizon. And that's some of the reality of the projects getting a little smaller. It isn't to say that those aren't important projects. They are, they're not as urgent on the regulatory side or on kind of operational failure standpoint. So they have dropped. And I think that's just again, trying to have this document be as realistic and matching our resource projections as we can.
Question, can you give an example of one of those?
It dropped all the way down or out. I don't have my old, let's see. There was, let's see. There were some street projects that were just, beyond, by the time we scooted the most necessary ones down to match up the funding, they dropped off the 5-year window. So they ended up being like in a 7-year window, mostly because they were large street reconstructions that we would need external funding for in the next round. If we already have some queued up for for external funding, they would be in the 2034 STIP.
They
I
were
think.
on a wish list somewhere?
Yes. Yeah. And all of these, that's a good point actually to bring up, is that they never really go away because the majority of them are, housed in 20-year master plans. So those are really where we pull these from and try to make how do we implement the various projects in the master plans? So yeah, they live on. I think, some smaller ones that maybe are aspirational, in a parks setting. We did try to leave some of those in and just mark them down. You see on the spreadsheet as 2030 plus, saying that those, because they, again, really are going to require external funding. And as we can get a little clarity on the horizon out in front of us, it's really hard to put a year out beyond 2 years about where we might theoretically see external grant or loan funding. So really trying to match these up with stuff that realistically can get truly plugged into budgets in the next 5-year cycle.
So an example of a street might be like the whole resurfacing of Skinner Street.
Yeah, there's some of those are, if they are full street reconstructions, but there are the fourth street reconstruction on the list. We know that the ODOT SCA, which is a primary way of funding that, would just be out past the 5-year mark. So we didn't kind of try and pretend that we could get 3 SCA loans in the same year, because we can't. Brings up another point of something that I added since we talked in the work session on the actual spreadsheets, at the back that kind of have the lists. There are 2 formats of the list. The first list is by category, which is, administration, general government, page 20, starting on page 20. So those 4 pages are consistent with what we looked at in the work session and went through line by line. Then on page 22 and 23, the same projects are just resorted in a by fiscal year, not by category. So across all 5 categories, just so we can see what we likely are looking at each fiscal year across our 4 funds. They're not all in the same pot of money. But I think it gives another a good lens to look at. And as you see, the the 2030 plus year is where things get squirrely, because that's beyond where we have a real firm grasp of where the funding is going to come from.
The estimates are in today's dollars.
They are, yes. Yep, they are. Mhm. Yep, and we did adjust as we look at ones that we know we were budgeting for. They're in our estimated 26. They're in the year we're entering dollars. So, but yes, and like we talked about in the work session and the retreat, some of these in the 2030 plus, some of these are, if then projects. They're not all yeses. So we may not, from a master plan, saying that we need, an external water source from eWeb. That would probably be instead of elevated storage of, so it wouldn't be that and that. So that confuses and actually compounds the dollars that likely we wouldn't be doing all of those based on some future analysis and future decisions of council.
So it's an or decision as opposed to an and or.
Right. Some of those are ors. Yeah,
Right.
right. Exactly.
A clarification to Alan's point there. I thought in previous CIP plans, they had projected expenses with some kind of cost of living increase, but these are today's dollars, even if it's listed in 2930.
Right. We could show those if you're interested in seeing them that way. I mean, it's a pretty, it's a formulaic thing. We could add, 10 to 15% per year for each of those. I think, what we're really looking at doing is, it's timing up our work plans to make sure that when we put them into the actual budget, we're actually as accurate as we can in the budget that they are going to live in, the 1-year slice. And then if they cross fiscals, which most of them do, that's when we would, it would be updated for the 2-year. That's the 2-year window is really the most, granular we can be and understand what the costs are.
So just a suggestion, since these,
You do, please be recognized.
okay. Thank you. So since these are public documents, I would just suggest that somewhere there's a statement that says these are 2026 estimates.
Make sure.
Because I think in the past, we looked at ones that did have a cost of living that were factored into them.
Okay.
So we're not surprised totally when we get to 2029 that 25,000 now becomes 65,000.
Mhm.
Well,
So even the 27 fiscal year 27 and fiscal year 28 and 29, those have not been adjusted for cost of living increases either. They're all in today's dollar.
Correct.
Okay.
Another challenge obviously is not knowing, the extent of what the project even covers. We're breaking it into phases, or, what external funding allows and doesn't allow. So it is hopefully better than generic placeholder dollars, but it clearly is not gonna, we're not gonna be able to give it very good estimates. We could just do a mathematical 10%, 20% a year, and pop that forward, if that's the desire of council.
Just to follow up, I mean, but are these numbers the ones that are put into like, graphs that you prepared for the general fund needs going forward 5 years or so? I mean, because these are part of those graphs, right? So, I mean, showing what our capital improvement costs are likely to be in the next 4 to 5 years. But are those numbers that are put into those graphs? And I mean, because that's kind of guided a lot of conversations that we've had about funding sources, is that if the numbers that we're putting in there are today's numbers, not accounting for cost of living increases, isn't that kind of a distorted view of what it's really going to cost?
General fund has very little capital projects for one.
Okay.
But
All right.
no, point well taken. I think more of that happens in the CIP, as the narrative says, it's a guidance document to the budgets. And it's really a translator between master plans and funding and budgets. So that, these projects have been extrapolated from a dollar amount that was in a master plan that was maybe 2015. So these are very broad numbers that, I think it would be challenging to, I mean, we could estimate, we could attempt to do something that provides clarity there. How advantageous it is from a policy making position, I'm not totally sure. I think the goal is to give kind of a relative scale to all of it and be generally accurate. But the idea, like Coleman Collector, once we figure out, how we're phasing it, where the boundaries are, that determines cost as much as an annual escalation of ENR or whatever. So I think it's hard. That's one component that moves that project pricing. And they are already extrapolated mostly from master plans. So
Some from 2015. I mean, really?
the projects are.
Some of these numbers though that are in here are from 2015.
No, we've updated those
Okay.
as we've done them. And so the point of annual updates is to have the most recent, the stuff that's coming right down the pike has the benefit of probably being the most accurate because we have the best idea of the actual box of the project. What is the scope, in a well, like a fourth well. In this, now we know that if we do a fourth well, it's going to be on the Stallings well field. Prior CIPs, before the well location wasn't even known. It's pretty wide guess at what the project cost is going to be when you don't know your depth, you don't know where the parcel is, you don't know how far your transmission line is, to it. So it is really challenging to have more than really educated guesses and have a number that's relative to another project.
And it seems to me that until we have engineering input, all of these numbers are really guesses.
Yep.
Projections.
Yep.
As opposed to, and even with engineering. Bowman.
I think of the CIP as a sort of placeholder, like an insert in a book. It simply tells us where we are now, not necessarily what the cost might be in the future or how it plays out. It is simply a bookmark that shows us a tiny portion of what might be ahead, but not necessarily the cost. So I wouldn't put too much stock in the numbers you see on the sheet, not because they're not accurate. They're accurate for now, but they might not be accurate the closer we get.
I asked if we're going to have conversations between council members, that you put it out for the group, please.
Oh, I'm not talking. He just showed me something.
Mr. Lehman.
I just showed him that person was detained into questioning for Nancy Gus's disappearance.
Yeah, we need, We need to stay on council business. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, are there further discussion, conversations?
I think, that was great. I think that illuminates a little bit of how we utilize the CIP. And again, I think Counselor Bowman nailed it. That's the functional kind of connecting document between master plans and our financial planning. They are used, to assist with the development of SDCs when SDC methodology is updated. Not the annual adjustments, but the actual core methodology changes if we were to change the EDU rates and that kind of thing. They're also useful for helping estimate rate modeling, utility rate modeling over a long period of time. And then those rate models each year are kind of proofed against what the current, the 1 or 2 year capital is. So it's always a look of, the distant, plugging them in, and then refine as we're making actual financial decisions. The last piece I'd say is nothing about, this process of updating the CIP by council, when council, if and when they adopt, that isn't binding anything to a particular year. The budget process is the only thing that actually appropriates funds. This doesn't have any appropriation. To give some guidance, it helps staff assemble a budget. And, then we have that conversation of, hey, we got more, especially when we do engineering design in one fiscal often, and then we get ready to do the construction in the second fiscal. When we get engineering design done, we obviously have a much better idea of the size and scope of the project. So then the construction amount can be estimated much, much closer. So we have a much better idea. And I think, that's a piece that I'm very committed to ensuring that when we're doing, when we're breaking projects down that are in the 1 to 3 year horizon, we get really clear that they're estimates until we get, about 60 to 70% design done. And then we have a much better sense of what the project is and what it costs. And then when we think we can, how long it takes to bid it and pull it off. So that was the last that helps. So I think that's all I had from the staff side of things.
Thank you. Lots of good conversation. At this point, we'll entertain a motion to accept resolution 2026-06, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 26-27 capital improvement plan.
Mayor Bell, move resolution 2606, a resolution adopting the 2026-2027 fiscal year capital improvements plan as presented.
We have a motion by Councilor Baumann. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Wells to adopt resolution 2026-06A, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2026-27 capital improvement plan. Is there any council discussion? None. I'll entertain a vote. Accept a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously 6-0. Okay. We're now on to the, resolution 2026-07, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2026-27 council framework document. And Mr. Hanks, do you want to give us a staff report on that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is another annual process that comes on the heels of the council retreat. We went over the framework, the both the prior year's adopted framework and what ended up being the final page of this proposed framework update, which is the spreadsheet on page 39, which has some blue and the green column that provided. The green was the status and the notes of the individual actions that were in last year's plan. So that's now attached as an addendum. So what I did was took from the conversation that was had at the retreat, that we went through each of the actions and talked through things, found most of what we were looking at. A few of them were able to be completed. Many of them were progress but ongoing. So I updated the actions throughout the document to be fiscal 27 actions. Some of those, when you compare to the prior years adopted, some of them are not worded any differently at all. There really is again, a guidance document to kind of check ourselves and provide updates. I think last year we did an update somewhere in the fall to just say, hey, where are we relative to the framework? So I think at least once a year, mid-year, we can break out the framework and say, okay, how are we doing? Especially the ones that have the higher priority. I did raise the priority level of the codification. I think that one from the staff's perspective, and that was one that I want to be sure that council is agreeable to that. That wasn't a true, we didn't ask for consensus votes or anything at the retreat. But I think that we've had it on, since before I got here. I think that's been a desire, and it's a heavy lift, so it's a challenge. But I think we likely don't tackle it unless we make it a priority. The challenge was I didn't have anything that I could see really easily to reduce, in priority down to a 3 from, to kind of level the playing field. It's not a perfect system. It's just more than a sentiment, but less than a mandate about how we prioritize. So that's one I wanted to call out and make sure if council would prefer that to remain a 2. Again, that's going to require some funding, and that might, even though it's from Sammy and I's perspective, and hopefully yours, that it's an important piece, having it be a priority level 1 doesn't automatically get it funding. We'll have that conversation in the budget process and likely be breaking it into phases as well, both from a staffing workload ability and also from financial. But that was a change I made that was based on our council retreat conversation, but not a direction. So I wanted to be sure on that. I think that's all I really have. I think it's I feel it's a useful document for both staff and hopefully for council and the community to see kind of the bigger stuff when we talk about, as we talked about, the 3-month, 30-month, 300-month stuff. This is that middle ground that helps us move, makes our 3-month work, our rolling 3-month work make sense and feed into our 30-month, that 2.5-year stuff, which then big picture feeds into comp plan and some of the same stuff that Mayor Bell read from the 1997 strategic plan. So at some point, this document, I think its natural evolution is a strategic plan. But we talked about that each year at the staff, or I mean at the council retreat. Again, that would take some dedicated time for both staff and council and the community, and also likely a little bit of funding. So I'm not promoting that right now. It's embedded here, I think, as the same priority level it was last year as an eventual thing we want to maybe evolve this to.
So the codification project would be a general fund. Be funded out of.
It is, yeah. It's general government. There's probably some cost allocation that can go to the other funds in a limited way. We have a cost allocation plan, and because ordinances are there to manage and govern our utilities as well. We have to be careful to not overdo that. It's primarily a general government, general fund function, but there are some cost shares that would be allocated.
There would be a little bit
Yeah.
that could be shared. Okay.
Yep.
I'm gratified to see the Duns
Yeah, those are
That's
good.
kind of nice.
Yeah, sometimes those are hidden, the projects you can tell when they're done, it
Right.
looks like it out in the ground, out in the world, but some of these are, are just workload that staff and council see and not many else.
The word done is a small word, but for some of these projects, that's a big lift.
Yeah,
It's like when you hear the bell on the task app, you click and goes ding. That's a satisfying feeling.
Yes, it is, for sure. Okay, well, thank you for that. So at this time, I will entertain a motion. Unless there are questions for Mr. Hanks. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adopt resolution 2026-07, a resolution adopting the 2027 City of Coburg Council Framework.
I second.
We have, there is a motion by Council Engelbrechtson and a second by Councillor Bauman to adopt resolution 2026-07A, a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2026-27 council framework. Is there council discussion? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously 6-0. Thank you very much. That was a lot of work. Thank you.
sure. It's nice that we're using the same document and the same kind of structure. I think that helps make it a little more efficient, but yeah, it's good guidance. Thank you.
Okay, next item on our agenda is the audit, the acceptance of the main audit of the city of Coburg for fiscal year 24-25. Presentation of that audit report will be from Mr. Hanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes,
Getting a
this.
workout tonight.
Yeah, I know. So we don't have the auditors here to present. We've done it a little bit varying ways each of the last few years of just having them not present but be available for questions. We've had them go through a somewhat lengthy presentation. So this year, it scheduling wise was challenging, but also we, and I did this with Finance Audit Committee as well. We don't have the auditors here and I'm just presenting. I have a quick slide presentation, just a primer, not on the contents of the audit, but just what the audit generally covers. So I'll start before we get into the slide deck. As I mentioned, the URA has a component unit, has its own, and the city, that's where the meat of the action is the city's audit. It's done annually, and we've had the same audit firm for a number of years. We've been challenged with some turnover in the finance side of things, and I think we've done really well to navigate that. We had some assistance from a financial consultant. We feel like we've got some systems in place that make it a little more plug and play. There's always different things that come up that bring questions, and new regulatory requirements that they're either asking us, do you have this? How do you prove that, two sets of eyes have been on this? And like, oh, well, we initial things, or, and some of those include the mayor with accounts payable. It's a challenge on some of the internal controls when we're so small. But the process went fairly smooth. We had some hiccup in communication that caused a little bit of delay, which was really not our operating reports, but it was really the difference between how we were displaying some of the balance sheet accounts, and some parts of the balance sheet accounts were in the general ledger and some weren't, so it wasn't complete. So it made it really messy. So we've had several kind of side consultations with the auditors about how best to actually do the balance sheet side of things. So I think that was slowed us down, which wasn't awesome, but we got clarity, and it was one that some of the communication was, I think some of the auditor staff kind of forgot how we decided from the prior year. So
They've had changes.
they've had some ownership changes, and they are massively busy. There are fewer auditors to do an ever more complex and more regulatory layers of municipal audits. I'll just rip through this slides, and then we can talk about anything that caught your eye in the actual audit. But I'll start with the letter is at the front is I think fairly boring. I think that's a good thing. There's nothing remarkable about the audit. I think we got good marks where we needed to on some of the things I'll touch on. And we had, I think, 3 adjusting journal entries that were very nominal, made sense. And we're making those now to make our audited fund balances match. So all in all, it took longer than I would have liked in total, went real well. And I'll add that the Finance Audit Committee did a thorough review at their meeting on the 28th of January, read it and went through it together, and had a formal vote for a recommendation of acceptance as well of the audit. And that group, of course, is I think all 100% members of the Budget Committee as well. So the audit elements, there's a lot of acronyms in here, and I know some of them, but they also change them. They're like the same, but then they change a word. But the audit elements are auditing our financial statements, a technical review for generally accepted accounting principles compliance, compliance testing. So they'll pull a random sampling of our accounts payable invoicing, and does it have the right checks and balances on it? How are the numbers derived? Manually go through some of the calculations, like in payroll, they'll pull timesheets, pull that, run that. How did somebody get this particular pay? Is there something in the HR files that actually has approved that certification pay or that step increase? Or so they'll just random sample across payroll, accounts payable, accounts receivable, special assessments, all of those things. So that's the compliance testing. There is a single audit that we have going on. I think we've talked about before. It has a different due date, so that is not a part of the packet here. A single audit is for federal funds. If you, in any one fiscal year, if you receive more than $750,000 of federal funds, you're required to do a single audit, which is a compilation of, I think the federal government, I don't know how many years ago, you used to have to, all the federal agencies would independently audit you. And so they've now created this single audit process. So no matter which agencies from the federal government you got funding for, if they accumulate and are more than 750, you go through the same process for everybody. It does make sense. And we have had some years in the past that what triggered it for us is the loan for the water loans. We've had years where we haven't spent that full 750 in any one fiscal. We finally did. It was just kind of an inevitability. I think it just was a part of the phasing and the slowdown of how we did it. It meant that several years we didn't have that. So single audit is still going on. I think it has a March 31st deadline. It's different. It doesn't go to the Oregon Secretary of State. It's a federal government submittal. But that is a kind of an ongoing component, and it requires pulling different things and different standards they ask of us. And then, of course, 5 is the reporting, the actual development of the document, the audit results, and then going over the internal control findings and noncompliance and all that. And of course, we had 0 noncompliance issues. Internal controls, like I said, is always one that I welcome, and we want to ask them. Here's what we have. Is that adequate? Is that good? What are our options in such a small agency to bolster that? And those are when you get bogged down in some of the other kind of more kind of normal parts or core parts of an audit, sometimes those get more of a cursory discussion than some years. So still have it on our list to really have a deeper dive. And they get into a little bit of rights, how do rights get assigned in our software, who has rights to to do various things inside the software. So it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's has its interesting and fun parts, and it also has its headache inducing parts. But so critical audit areas going through, I just hit on some of those: internal controls, the IT environment, cash and investments, how we distribute interest earnings and all of that, and where are we in terms of our policies? Do we have policies in place? Revenues and receivables. So they check that, they look for discrepancies and why the big ups and downs. So they'll ask a lot of questions of me primarily, but there's also some capital assets, finance and Brian in Public Works and I go through and update that. We're getting that capital assets spreadsheet more and more updated and really understandable in terms of titles, what they are on the list. It's really, sometimes it's a head scratcher to say, well, is this one still there? Is it depreciated? Is it gone? Well, waterline doesn't give us a whole lot to go on. So we're each year, as we discover really what those are, and as they depreciate out, as we add new, we're getting a little more formal on our naming convention for the capital assets. So that's getting better each of the years. Long-term debt, there's a really good section in here on long-term debt. So if you're, and I think I've handed it out at prior retreats. Actually, it's a really good 2-pager. I can get you to the page number, but it's got a really good, it's organized well between the governmental debt and the proprietary, the enterprise fund debt. And we've got really good spreadsheets. That's one that was really built out about two years ago that makes that conversation and portion of the audit go real smooth. We now have all of our, we just have it all in one place. It makes it easier to assemble. It was already always here. It just, I think we've cleaned up how it's assembled and just getting it to them quite quickly and easily. The accrued liabilities, PERS, we don't touch that really at all. We purchase that, as do most cities. From Milliman is the firm. It goes through all of the, you'll see that there's probably 30 pages of PERS related content in this audit. That is every city, everybody that's a member of PERS has that section in the audit. It's a kind of a subspecialty in the audit world. And most of that, the actuarial table stuff and all of those things are really purchased. And we, that's part of our audit costs is we buy that third party. It doesn't come until October-ish. And so that means that there's no way to really get an audit done too early. It's just waiting for those pieces and parts to assemble. Grants are always asked about and reviewed between staff and the auditors. We still have we have a rolling 3 or 4 small grants, and then we had Pavilion, and we have some forgivable loan components of our water loans. So those are grants from an audit perspective. They look at our financial closing processes and our financial reporting, including what we provide to the governing body to make sure that the governing body sees the right stuff. And then there's a whole list of Oregon minimum standards that they review against. So the audit process, just I've hit on most of this, but it's that circle that we talk about of the financial stuff never ends. It's just a kind of a hamster wheel. July, we balance and close the fiscal year. In August, we get kind of whatever the updated list of what we need to provide. Most of it we're already preparing for, and all of our closing the fiscal year is with the knowledge of what we are going to need to provide, and it's formatted in a way that facilitates that. We submit all those electronically. They come 1 or 2 times, depending on what the needs are, in August and September. They're on site for full days. And we just sit and wait and scurry around and get whatever they ask for whenever they ask for it. And September, October, November, they kind of head back to their shop and compile everything and look at what else is missing. There's some of those the documents that are required of you all to the survey work and completing your acknowledgements and all those things as part of the governing body. capital assets usually happens in the September, October, November time, and some debt service back and forth. And then in November, December, hopefully in November, but it's happened the last 2 times in December, that we actually get the draft audit. And we review it internally, look it over, ask any questions back and forth with a staff review. And then we tell them, yeah, everything that we see, we kind of concurrent, everybody nods. And the final document's complete in December. It gets submitted to the Oregon Secretary of State. And then it goes through the process locally of being reviewed and acknowledged, accepted through our own Finance Audit Committee. That's not a requirement of state law, but that's a very common that local governments will have an audit or review committee that does a precursor look. And then on to city council for final review and acceptance. So that's the process and kind of what it covers. And as we talked about a little bit in the retreat, in about 5 or 6 months, we'll start it all over again.
You say it really is. It just is a circle. It just
Yeah.
goes round and round.
Yeah, and larger agencies, larger cities, they have accounting staff that do audit and they have budget staff that do budget. Admittedly, both of their processes are more involved than ours. We don't have different people for that. We have the same people that do the audit and the budget. But they're very linked. And the more our staff learns and understands our business operations, and the easier it is to work with the auditors, because it's a good thing. As much as we can the audit. It's super valuable. And there's some stuff around the region in the headline just in the last few weeks about, really indirectly how valuable audits are. When you get behind, governing bodies don't get current, accurate information, and they make decisions, both operational as staff and governing bodies, on inaccurate or outdated financials. And that's a huge deal. And I think it's harder and harder, as you see on the lists on the Secretary of State's website, about how many cities are 1, 2, sometimes 2+ years behind in audits, and that's a challenge. So, like I said, we don't always love that we've got the audit almost half the year on our docket on the whiteboard, but it is an essential part of what we do, and it's worth every penny and all the all the work on the upstairs to get it done and get it accurate. So we know then when we go into budget, our fund balance numbers have been audited and are accurate, and we make decisions knowing what our resource situation is.
Now, there was a small city recently that had an audit for 2 or 3 years, hadn't been able, for whatever reason, and when it was done, or I'm not done, but they discovered that they were in a deficit of several $1 million, 9 million or something like that, for a small city. Huge, absolutely huge. How can you make decisions about what you can do if your budget numbers are wrong?
Yep. And a lot of those, most of the time, it's not of malfeasance or
No.
even negligence. It's sometimes they were put in the wrong bucket, and they get reconciled and go, oh, that's not legal. They have to go here, and so there's a lot of different reasons for that, and it's not intended to be a slam on those that aren't current. And they also have staffing turnover problems, and audit firms are harder and harder to come by. We are getting to a spot where we can consider we will need to be going out to bid. So we'll see what the auditor market even is these days. I think it's a statewide challenge, and I think that's something that needs to be looked at beyond our level. Is, can cities comply with the deadlines? Because a lot of it is in the auditor's hands, not staff's hands.
Mr. Lehman?
I don't know which city it was, but one just came up with $22 million of housing funds that were found.
Yeah, it was,
Be-
that was Portland,
Yeah.
and it grew to 101 million, I think was
Yeah.
now the next level of that, yeah. And I don't know if that was from, there's obviously, cities that size will have internal auditors as well, but, yeah, that's an idea of, and I don't know the details, was that not captured in the right subledger? Was that, was it not, documented and recorded right? I think, the money was there. The people running that
Nice.
program.
That's better than a deficit.
Yeah.
But how do you
Still.
miss that?
Yeah.
2 questions.
Yes.
So this is a GASB standard audit. Last year, we talked about going to a non-GASB audit that was gonna be more streamlined and less expensive. I know at the finance department, director at the time, Gregory Peck, didn't want to go that direction. Did that have any more discussion after the last audit that we had?
I'm not
Certain. There was a reason that we could not do that. That was there. And I think it came from the auditors that we couldn't change the process that we were doing and making it simple. I recall correctly.
Yeah, I don't think we
That
have
was
any,
the-
I'm struggling to remember that dialogue, actually. Yeah, if you can add more to it.
I think I remember at some point, brief discussion about just going with a cash basis.
Oh,
For
right,
our
right, right.
financial
Yeah, oh,
statement.
yes,
Yeah,
modified
thank
accrual and
you.
catch bit. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm with you.
Just simplify the
Right.
audit and our financial statements, because we pretty much operate on a cash basis, which is not unusual, especially for a city this size. Yeah, it must have been something that auditor realized would prevent us from being eligible to do that. I think.
Right, and thank you. That's the part that we are on a modified accrual, and that's where we had to stay. Thank you. Yes, that was looked into, right.
And the other question, we had a rating drop to A+ or A-. Are we still at A-?
Yes, we have not had any other reviews or activity on that. And just as a quick recap, that was I think half partially due to how they changed the standard by which they evaluate, and so all small cities got a notch down. And as a risk, just as an assigned risk factor, and the other half of that was assigned to our challenged general fund balance. So the combination of those two things were the primary attributes to dropping. What kind of impact that has on our ability to access external funds? I don't know right now how significant that is. It's still solid. I think though the conversation obviously about stabilizing and our general fund balance, that's a part of that rating that we can control over time. We can't control that we're small and that they changed how they evaluate smalls. But yes, we did go down, but we have not had any other. I think it's either every 2 or every 3 years where they evaluate that.
And so that rating doesn't get reflected in our audit.
Don't believe so. I don't
No.
believe it's in here. No.
The auditors were very clear in saying they're evaluating the process that we do things,
Right.
not our financial status, and that
Right.
would reflect in our bond.
Exactly. Yeah.
Counselor Bowman.
I have a question. I can't recall what page it's on, but it says fairly early on in the audit that 83% of the liabilities that we have comprise bonds and notes payable. Is that typical of jurisdictions to have debt comprise such a high portion of their liabilities?
Of the total, of the total liabilities, probably not off much. I don't have a good feel for that. I bet you the range, is 75-ish. We may be slightly above that, and that it's probably, we do have, and we've talked about for a small, relatively small budget and a small operating budget, we do have a relatively high debt load. We do have one that's going off, and then we have another one that's coming on, but I'm sorry, I don't have a great answer about how we are relative to others on that.
I'm not suggesting that it's anyone's fault necessarily or something to worry about. That was just a number that caught my attention.
It is on page 53, and it talks about capital assets.
Thank you,
Which
thank you,
is
yes.
85%, and it describes what the assets are comprised of, and that's
83.
85%. And then it says the largest liabilities, which represent 83% of total liabilities, are notes and bank and bonds payable. Other liabilities consist primarily of payables on accounts, salaries, and benefits as of June 30th.
Thank you for that,
Yeah.
Maribel. I couldn't remember the page
Well,
number. And
nor could I, but I somehow found it, which was.
I'm glad I remembered the percentage.
You were right on that.
Yeah, Councilor Roman, I do think that's probably a bit higher, but you would find that probably that in smaller jurisdictions more so than a large, because if you look at the other liabilities that they describe, larger cities would have much larger salary and
Yeah.
salary benefit and other AP and that kind of stuff.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
I just don't know how different that would be compared to us for
No,
another
it just
city.
caught my attention and I
Yeah.
thought I would try to get some additional information. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mr. Hanks? Not, I will entertain a motion.
Hope if anybody sees the script, I can freeform it.
Oh, suggested.
Right, I move that we accept the audit for fiscal year 2024-25 as presented.
I second.
We have a motion by Counselor Engelbretson, thank you for that, and a second by Counselor Bauman to accept the audit as presented for fiscal year 24-25. Is there any further council discussion? Hearing none? No. Entertain a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. 6-0. Thank you very much. Now we're on to administrative reports, and those are in our red folder. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, and I've got one that I'll talk about and I'll hand out that's an added handout to it. I quickly go over the administrator's report. First one is the proposed new general fund fee. Just a note as we send, this is another external communication as well as a communication to council. We put these on Facebook and also have a spot specifically for them on our website. So it's another part of our outreach effort to make sure that that is out there and knowing that it's being discussed. I do have, I mentioned in this note, and it'll be on the website, the handouts, the FAQ.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
We'll see if he can see what his high jump is like.
Wrong Olympics. It's the Winter Olympics.
So we talked about at the, both at the last work session where we discussed this and at the retreat about having, formatting our initial outreach and community of the council is considering this new fee to be in an FAQ format. So we talked about the questions at the retreat. I did not have the answers or the responses when we discussed it at the retreat. So this is the draft of the first go round of sending things out. Clearly, as on page 2 of that indicates that we'll have scheduled different town hall formats. I use town hall as a pretty generic term. I don't know exactly what opportunities to chat are, and we'll work up a schedule of those. with the mayor and I, and of course, we'll for sure let council know and we can ensure that we, with the proper noticing and all that, we make everybody available. The remaining documents that go with that are background documents that you've already had in prior packets. They just provide a little bit of context and history to kind of how we got to the spot we're at. So the first one is the memo that came to council on January 13th from that really summarized the discussion and direction provided from the council revenue subcommittee discussion in December. So that's the final document there is, and that one is the one that I unfortunately did not have at the retreat. That includes the table talking about kind of general category revenues and expenses for at least the current year's general fund, to give a sense of why we're needing this conversation to occur. So that's that, and it's gonna, this will go out later this week or the beginning of next. We'll see when it gets out the door. So if you do have any commentary, either now or individually, be fine. But I hope it's hits the mark in terms of, you know, asking those general questions, prompting interest, prompting, understanding of the kind of the real basics. And then we'll have a page on the website that'll have all the other materials with it and have kind of an expanded view of this. This is the Cliff Notes, intended to be the real Cliff Notes version.
Lyman.
Two things. One, just a grammatical thing on
Okay.
on item 5, line 3. Another parentheses after property tax. I assume it goes right after the word tax. I'm looking at the same page you are.
So.
Oh, I see what you mean.
including
Yeah.
income Options levy.
Yep.
Property tax assessment.
So it's the
Parens after assessment. Yep.
after assessment.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. And then at the retreat, we talked about the proposed fee would be a dedicated fee.
Yes.
That was, I thought, pretty important.
I put that in the first sentence of the question one.
Dedicated.
Oh, dedicated funding.
I
Okay.
could add it again if there are other places where it should be reiterated. I can go through it and make sure if there's any
No,
spot.
that's fine. I did, I was looking at number 2.
First bullet.
So number 1,
Yeah, it's there.
what the new fee,
Capitalize that.
underline
type.
bold.
Yeah,
bold.
exactly.
I mean, I think it doesn't hurt to have it in number 2 to describe, you know, this proposed dedicated fee.
Yeah.
I think,
Good point.
Yeah.
okay, thank you. That's great.
Or instead of dedicated fee, but fee dedicated to the police department.
In paragraph 6 as well, anywhere.
Yeah.
In advance of fee.
Good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dedicated to the police.
Yeah, good. I'll emphasize that. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, police, court, and
Yeah.
code enforcement.
Yeah.
Public safety,
Yeah, public
Right.
safety.
dedicated to
Yes.
public safety.
Yep. Good. I'll hit it harder on that throughout the Q&A or FAQ.
There was conversation at the retreat about the naming of the fee. Public safety support fee versus city services fee. Are we all okay with public safety support fee?
Yes. Clarifies it better.
We on the subcommittee felt like that was a better descriptor. City services fee.
And, that obviously kind of matters for how we set the table for all this, but it technically can still be, if there is a change of heart, that's comes in the ordinance and resolution. There's a spot that actually calls out what it's going to be labeled as. So you could change, but I think it is important. I appreciate clarifying for now.
Councilor Engelbrechtson.
Do we have, it might be here in one of the council memos, but you know, you put on here, don't property taxes pay for public safety, which is great. I think that's good. But it might be nice to have a little bit more of that background information. I don't know how easy that would be to put in a bullet format, but the sort of background about the tax fee revenue increasing at 3% or whatever it's capped
Oh,
at per
the
year
kind of-
versus the obviously expenses
We do have,
over the past few
yeah.
years going up, kind of wedge, that
Yes.
graph that shows the wedge
okay,
or something like that might
Uh-huh.
be helpful to, maybe just the graph would be helpful to have on.
Yeah.
one of these.
I can
So
find a way
report
to
an
incorporate that.
overall view.
That is
the
powerful
situation.
when you say that, yes, we are getting property taxes go up 3% a year maximum, which I, as a property owner, appreciate until I have to sit here and have budget conversations on a municipal level. But costs of doing business go up 10 to 15%. So that creates that, as you call it, that wedge, that
Yeah.
ever growing gap.
Yeah, I think we have room. I can add that for sure. It's a great ad. Yeah, appreciate that.
Excuse me, Mayor Bell.
Oh, yes, Counselor Smith.
I'm not looking at the red folder and so it may be there, but we had also talked about letting community know that other than just the fee, that there has been other things that have happened to try to reduce costs. So if those are in there, I'm fine with it, but I do think it's important, the staff reduction and some of the other things that have happened on the side. It's not just the easy go-to, oh, we're just going to slap a fee. We've tried a lot of other things, and maybe just a list of a few of the other things that have been tried, just something pretty simple.
Okay, good,
That-
good point.
Yeah, thank you. That is not in there, but that can easily be added. I'll note that.
That's been in the community meetings that I've
Mhm.
held so far. I've hit that, but that's great. Great information, great ad. And we will be doing more community meetings once this information goes out and the rate adjustments. I think there may be better participation at that point. As I used to say, I'll wear my cast iron underwear.
Yeah, you might need a friend.
Yeah. Counselor Wells.
Just quick comment. I mean, if the Joe General public's gonna read this and these are questions, shouldn't they, just a different way of doing things, shouldn't they be answered immediately? Like, for example, don't property taxes pay for public safety? Answer, yes, partially, and then go into the
Sure.
detail.
Yeah.
Or something like, something like that. just
No,
'cause
yeah,
Most people won't read anything beyond
Yeah.
yes, partially.
yeah,
I mean, they'll stop.
totally agree. Yep, I appreciate that. Yep.
Good point.
Yeah, do it in a true Q&A format. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I'll review them all for that.
And what other options did council consider? And so that may be,
A lot.
yeah, I mean, we have done other things, more than considered. What have we done? And then what other options were considered? And I think that speaks to what you were asking, Counselor Smith.
Well, Counselor Wells, in that vein, I think, yeah, question number 5, probably is the first sentence 2 should be for sentence 1. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll go through it with that in mind. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we let them know that we did look at other options and why those weren't feasible, like going with the sheriff's department or I think that a lot of people, I think they need to know we looked at that and they need to know what the cost would have been for what we would have gotten.
So maybe before we move on, is that something for this document? I get it. That gets pretty detailed and a bit subjective a little bit.
Put that into
I-
our face-to-face meeting.
I think there's more
Okay.
town hall conversation. I think that's very valid.
Yeah.
And I think there's a way to weave that in. I think it might be hard to accurately get it in here without it maybe feeling leading, or only looking at 1 or 2 samples, because there are IGAs between sheriffs and
Sure.
cities throughout the state. So it's hard, but
Okay.
I think we know what we've studied and what we've looked at. But if council's all right, I think it feels better to me to hit that in the town halls and with its own dedicated handout about some of
Okay.
that backgrounder. And then, and this really is intended for that. It's that casting that first net, right? It's,
Okay.
it's not answering everything. But I think on the, Counselor Smith, your point about expense reductions, maybe there's, yeah, I'll try and think if there is one that's a concise thing that at least touches on that. So then we have something to build on in other meetings or other communications.
Okay.
It might be hard to fit all of that in on a Q&A. Because it,
Yeah, and
the goal-
maybe just the mention to get people to think about it, and then if they have questions, we can answer them more fully.
Yeah.
Come on to
Yeah.
the meeting. Or contact us. Yeah.
I think we can, yeah, like we can at least get a nugget and a nod in there to it and then build on it from later. Or I think there's a spot. I appreciate that.
Counselor Lyman?
So on number 4, the answer, don't property taxes pay for public safety? And the answer is yes. Is it better?
Partially.
Yes. I was gonna say, is it better to say yes, but not 100%?
Yeah. Yeah.
Some wordage that says,
Some,
yeah,
Not all.
yeah,
Yeah.
some, not all, not
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, right, and not enough.
I think,
That
yeah,
might be-
yes, to some degree, partially,
Yeah.
you know, and then we can give a thereabouts. The hard part, of course, with that is it depends on how you want to allocate, you know, all the different revenue streams. And we don't do that like we talked about at the retreat. It's a general fund for all of those services so that it isn't a one-to-one. But in general, property taxes make up half of the general fund. That's easy factual information, but then how you
How does that?
go about linking them to all the various programs, that's
And all of these things come out of general fund.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
gets hard. to
that's
put
what
in
that
a
second, you know,
budget.
that's really what the third memo is, which really tries to show, you know, what are the different revenue streams. And I think that is where it's a little more conducive to a town hall kind of a format,
Mhm.
or somebody looking at the website and digging further and asking, then emailing us a question. The bottom of that page will be, you know, have more questions, you know, email
Oh,
us or
good,
let us know.
Good.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Comments?
Run through the rest of the admin report if you want,
Okay.
but that was, I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that
That was
on
great.
the fly.
And certainly take it home, look at it,
Yep.
and if you come up with anything else, shoot an email or pick up the phone.
Great. Item number 2 is just a reference for everyone. We participated not as much as I wanted. I didn't end up going to the actual event, but I provided some information early. LCOG did a regional resiliency stress test, and that was in November. Just last week, the executive director put out the summary report from that exercise, and that's attached here at the back of the document. I think it's some worthwhile reading. You know, it's addressing kind of the changes in funding that are being, you know, some of them have happened, some of them are being bandied around, some of them are foregone conclusions. There's a whole mixed bag, you know, of where they sit. And some are indirect, that they go from federal to state and then down. Obviously, LCOG has a direct interest as they have provide services in adult and disabled, the senior and disabled services that are directly federally funded. So, but this is really looking at the region and a lot of what are the impacts to the changes in how they're structured. And again, I think we talked about it a little bit at the retreat. Some may end up having some benefit, different amounts in different pots, you know, as different things come about. I think the idea here for our level is just to be aware, and, you know, I'm participating just as just to make sure I'm tracking what everybody's thinking about and inserting, you know, where we see things. And you know, knock on wood for right now, we're not immediately operationally hamstrung by it, but our community will definitely feel impacts from it. We'll feel it from our partners. And, you know, we don't know how temporary some of those are, and we don't know if they ever actually will happen, but it was just food for thought, good information about what the region is doing to kind of try and prepare and monitor as it goes. The third item, it goes on both pages. But it's some population growth stuff. Portland State University is the Population Research Center, and they're the official population folks for the state of Oregon. And we get all of these estimates and revised estimates, and then actuals. They lag. But just wanted to share some of the stats, and then I ran the bullet list at the bottom of or at the growth below the growth rate are just some anecdotes that I ran some numbers on. I got the spreadsheet and couldn't help myself and played with it and thought I'd share. Again, we talk about, kind of where we are relative to the municipal environment in Oregon. 241 cities, 97 cities are smaller than us, and 144 are larger. So we're not maybe as small as we think. There's a lot of really small cities. Yeah.
Cities.
Yeah. 159 have under 5,000. That's well over half. Only 59 of the 241 are over 10,000 population. The median just over 2,000. Average is 12.7. And then we're adjacent to third largest, almost number 2. Missed it by just a few. Salem beat it out by a very small percentage. Yeah, it does. It goes back and forth. But yeah, no doubt that we're in, that's important, I think, to recognize. And then, right across the way then is Springfield at number 9. So 2 in the top 10. And then Lane County is, the fourth county in terms of population, and the top 3 are the Portland metro counties. So outside of Portland metro, Lane County is the most populous. So I think it's just good context. I just thought it interesting for one, and good context. That's probably it from the highlights there. What do we have? The other item that's in the packet, I will turn it over to Chief Larson. There's an annual report.
Yep, and that is on page 136.
Thank you. Yes,
of our packet.
Yeah, that the chief and his team put together. We've gotten a really good rhythm going of, I think, really
really
great
looks
quarterly
good.
reports. And then this is taking the highlights of those quarterlies and turning them into an annual report that adds a few things. And I'll let the chief talk about what stuff is on here that isn't necessarily always in the quarterlies.
Hi, everybody.
I-
I'm excited I get to talk police department. Exciting for me. So it's a 5-page recap trying to capture the Coburg Police Department on what we do for the citizens and for the council. So we broke it down into 5 different pages, about 9 separate areas. I'm going to just touch on them relatively quick. Number 1 is community outreach. We have a great relationship with the community. We participate in all the community events. The Holstein Hustle, the Coburg Light Parade, the Antique Fair, the Coburg Car Classic. We do our own event, or actually we have helmet reward coupons. What those are is, if we see 5 kids and one of them's wearing a helmet, he gets $1 coupon to spend at the Dairy Mart for a reward for his helmet. Well, normally what happens, the other 4 sprint to their house to get their helmets. So that's just positive reinforcement. So we've been doing that for the last couple of years. So we'd love to give those out. We also have the radar trailer that we try to move around wherever we think there's a hot spot, or if we get a citizen complaint, we normally put it in that particular location.
Chief, can I quickly add,
Sure.
that as many things in this report have rollovers between PD, our police department, our public works department, everything that we do in code enforcement. So that speed trailer often is one that, yes, it's used for speeding and in traffic enforcement, but it also helps us really determine, what we should be doing with treatments of streets. And so it actually, we have some team ups that really help on strategic locations that we put it in. Besides, it's just more than just the traffic. So,
Yeah.
Sorry.
We
Jump in.
get
You're good.
a count then of
Yeah,
of
yeah,
how
we could do
busy
that,
that
yep.
street is.
Yep, it's been really useful.
We also do the Shop at the Cop, the drug take back program. And then we do the community shred day, which has been real popular to help fight identity theft. So shred your stuff when we do that. We can keep that out of people's harm's way. On the second paragraph, we have a great relationship with the Coburg Community Charter School. We got to remember there's 225 kids there every day. And there's 25 staff. So there's 250 people there that we're responsible for their safekeeping. So with that, we do annual training with the school on the I Love You Guys safety protocol. So we know what they're gonna do in a safety situation, and they know what we're gonna do. We have the same terminology. If you do a lockout, what that looks like, and every one of the patrol cars have a master key. We also have other breaching tools, because if you get a lockout, you lock out cops as well. On some training, historically, that's been a problem, so we've tried to mitigate that. We have all those tools in every police car. Might seem like kind of a small thing, but that's a big thing when an incident happens. So we've done a lot of training with the school. We do it every year, build a relationship with the kids so they're not freaked out when they see a police officer at school. We do an ice cream social at the end of the year. Bubba's ice cream truck goes to the school, and we do an ice cream social with all the kids. All of them thank us. We throw around a football and, watch them get wet by the fire department. But it's just they're used to seeing us at the school. We go there as often as we can, just to build down that wall. And that's been really productive. Actually was on a call the other day, and Coburg firefighter said, "Do you remember me?" And I'm like, "No." She said, "Well, I was at the Coburg Charter School. You guys came to the school all the time." So now, no, she actually works for Eugene as a paramedic. But she grew up here in Coburg and remembers that. So that was kind of cool.
Well, I think that Mr. Hanks and I will come for your next ice cream social. I
Yeah, you should.
like ice cream.
That's when I get cops to show up too. We also do safety classes for them. They have us do like a disaster preparedness and a bullying class. We might not do those every year, but most of the time, then they'll have a student do ride-alongs and do a project on police career. So it's been a great relationship with them. We have a great relationship with other and neighboring agencies. The Lane County Sheriff's Department helps me with the light parade for traffic control, because that's such a big event. We also help them at the Veneta Light Parade. Junction City has asked us for help in the past for the Scandinavian Festival. This year, we helped Lynn County Sheriff's Department cover a shift for them. They had an officer die, and so they had a funeral for that officer, and we covered shifts for them. We covered part of a shift for them. So just a great relationship with all the different agencies. About a month ago, we did a sex offender registration sweep with Eugene Springfield, the U.S. Marshals, Junction City, Coburg Police Department, did a bunch of sex offender checkups, make sure they are where they are and they're in compliance. Oh, and in that event, we did 12 compliance checks. We arrested one sex offender, citation in lieu of custody, 6 registrations, and confirmed that 2 of the sex offenders were deceased. We also have a CHET program, and Councilor Myers will recognize this. So it's Community Help Easing Troubled Times, and it's donate funded by donations every year, and we use that to help travelers or people that are stranded on the freeway. We buy lots of gas. We've bought meals for various people. November, we bought some car was broken down over at the Fill and Go that had been there for like a day. We found them. There was 4 adults and 3 kids living in this car. They actually put a pop tin out in front of it for the kids. It was just a bad situation. So day 1, we bought them diapers. Day 2, we bought them food. They were supposed to have family to come and help them. That never materialized. So the taco truck and myself, I'm not the best mechanic in the world, tried to help them mechanically to get them going. We're unable to do so. So and they had relatives in Vancouver, Washington. So we bought 6 train tickets for them to get to Vancouver. So that was, I don't know, about $200, but it was well spent to get them out of the weather. And it was cold. It was really cold. So that JET program comes in handy in a lot of ways. You've used it for motels for domestic violence survivors. And we had one that was needed to stay overnight to testify as a witness in Pendleton. We worked with the district attorney's office, but we were able to get them a motel to get them back to where they needed to be. So it's a great program that helps us a lot.
How many donations do you get annually?
I don't have the number in front of me. I think we get about $1,000. Sometimes we'll get $500 donation, you know, some bigger donations. But normally we're spending, I bought tires before and that was like $80. The guy drove a mile on Interstate 5 to get here to Coburg, and he was just down and out in a bad way. So I went to Franklin Boulevard, the Big B tire, one of the tire shops down there, and bought some used tires and got him on his way. Because normally when they stay here too long, they start getting into trouble. And so we try to help them, whatever north, south, wherever they're going. So that's been a tremendous help. We also bought battery jump boxes. So all of the patrol cars have a jump box so we can jump people's cars to help them, because that happens often with people traveling through town. Is kind of a simple thing to do once we bought them for the cars. So that's worked out really well. And we did that 12 times this year. And now some of those aren't gonna, no, they would be included in that. So one thing I didn't have in this report was ordinances. So we do a lot of ordinance stuff, which is kind of not exciting police work, but extremely important. When we have these broken down motorhomes or cars in the cul-de-sacs, Roberts Road, Roberts Court, you know, we have all of our locations that we find them. The people that I give the train tickets to, I actually ultimately ended up towing that car because it was abandoned. So I don't have those stats in here for you. I'll try to remember that for next year, but that's not exciting police work, but it's really important to do that kind of stuff. Moving on, the crisis negotiation team. It's a multi-jurisdictional team for the Lane County Sheriff's Department. We had Sergeant Miller is assigned to that team. He had 5 call outs. Those call outs go anywhere from probably an hour to, I think he was out like 7 or 8 hours on one. But they've had successful resolutions on all of those so far. So that's a big plus. We assist other agencies. Sometimes we'll get a call from Portland PD or Hermiston that they need follow-up on a criminal case. Somebody that might live here in town or have an address here in town. So we will go help them with interviews or notifications or anything like that. We did that 9 separate times this year. Motor vehicle crashes, as you know, we're right off the freeway. We get a tremendous volume of traffic and the truck stops. So we had 20 motor vehicle crashes this year. Some of them are injury, a lot of them aren't, which is a good thing. But we have quite a bit of motor vehicle crashes. Department of Human Services, DHS, we had, so if they get a referral that goes to the hotline and it's an address, or they go to the school at Coburg, they forward that, I think it's a DO7, they forward to the police department. We go out on every one of those. It's not discretionary. We go out on all of them. We had 8 of them this year. Some of them are founded, some of them are not. I don't have that stat, but we investigate every one of them. DUI crash or investigations, we arrested 4 DUI drivers. That could be a combination of drugs and alcohol, which is normally the case, or pure alcohol. We're excited when it's just alcohol because it's easier, which is a terrible thing to say, but there's a lot of intoxicated drivers out there. And I'm sure you've seen during the holiday season, I put a wrecked car out here to try to deter that kind of behavior. So I'm hoping it was successful. We do that every year.
I got a lesson on how challenging the non-alcohol part Larry went through, how technical and involved that is. So
very
it's pretty interesting. Yeah.
You gotta write search warrants and get a blood draw and do the whole thing. So it's
Rather than just a breathalyzer.
correct.
the
Yeah, it's
alcohol.
very
Yeah.
complicated.
Yeah.
Death investigations, whenever there's a death in the city of Coburg, that's an unattended death, they would call us. We have to do an investigation. If there's anything suspicious, bruising, position, just circumstances, and we might call the medical examiner to come out and take a look at some. We had 6 of those last year. Bad thing for us is we had 4 in about a week, or 4 or 5 in about a week. And they were public. One of them was in a hallway at an entrance to a business. Another one was at a city park in front of some grandkids and other people using the park. Those don't happen very often, which we're thankful for that, but those are a full investigation. You treat them like there's something serious, even if it's not. Those take quite a bit of time, so we had 6 of those. Use of force, every time we make an arrest, whether it's a citation in lieu of custody, which we have the option to do, or a full custody arrest, we track that arrest to see if there's any use of force. Last year we had 38 use of force. We had 5 that were a weapon was drawn on an individual or subjects. Physical force used 3 separate times, and then just handcuffs. So 76% of the time, we don't use any force whatsoever. Pretty good percentage. 7% of the time we use physical force, where you got to go hands-on, maybe take somebody to the ground, whatever control technique you need to use. And then 5 times we displayed a weapon, what might be a felony car stop or a stolen vehicle, something like that. On the next page I have, it's kind of a breakdown of a couple of those instances. So for use of force, Coburg Police Department drew their weapon to effect an arrest on the subject who was actively violating a restraining order and burglarizing a Coburg resident. He fled but was arrested a short time later. Coburg Police Department was involved in this, responded to a call of a vehicle driving down the freeway with somebody armed, standing up through the sunroof, pointing a firearm at other cars. I ended up finding the vehicle at the Arco, and we did a felony stop on them because we suspected that they had a weapon. And they were just menacing other people on the freeway.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, that was. But, for everybody's safety, I mean, we don't want to use that, but to gain compliance, they were young adults that didn't have really good attitude, which is probably why things happened on the freeway. Another one was a burglary, responding to a burglary on Roberts Road. A business was being burglarized. Deputies responded, officer came. They ended up having video on the alarm system. So we knew somebody was inside. We ended up surrounding the building. He made it out the back, tried to escape through the cyclone fence, but we had a drone and a canine waiting for him. So ultimately he ended up going to jail. He just got convicted, I think, last week of burglary, and I'm not sure what he got sentenced to, but. And we had a disorderly conduct at the truck stop, which happens every once in a while. Upon the arrival, the suspect attempted to punch the officer in the face. And of course, you can guess what happened next. He was taken to the ground by Coburg Police Department and Lane County Sheriff's Department. He was taken into custody for resisting arrest, disorderly conduct. Officers attempted to make a traffic stop on a black sports car. The vehicle eluded the police officers. We were able to find them, catch them. The driver, everybody ran from the vehicle. We ended up catching everybody. The female resisted arrest, was placed in a control hold by police and taken to the Lane County Jail with a couple outstanding warrants for her arrest. Just 2 more. The next one is we were dispatched to a disorderly subject who was intoxicated and jumped from a moving vehicle while in Coburg. So that's not normal. Lane County Sheriff's deputies arrived. Police officer was on call at that time and had to respond from home, responded from home and was assisted in the arrest. And the person had mental health, went to the jail. Ultimately, they had mental health issues and was taken to Riverbend and placed on a peace officer's hold. So you don't have a 24-hour person on duty. You have officers that might be on call from their house. So there might be a little bit of a delayed response to get there. And this is what happened on this particular case. The officer was able to get there about the time that they started to put the person into custody. The sheriff's department, who had somebody in their seat, got there before us, and that happens. Most of the time we're able to beat them here, but every once in a while they'll beat us here, but it's a little bit longer response when you're coming from home, which is why all the officers have take-home cars. That's their rolling office, so everything they need is in that car, except for maybe a laptop, is in that car to do anything they need to do out on patrol. So that's what happened on this particular case.
Where do the sheriffs typically respond from, or does that vary?
Could be from Oak Ridge, from Florence, from Cottage Grove, you just don't know. You know, during the day, they might have a main office patrol. Yeah, they go all the way to, I mean, up above Oak Ridge, all the way to Florence, south Cottage Grove. Most of the time, if they need assistance, you know, if they have somebody way out of position, depends on the nature of the call. If they'll call us or OSP, OSP normally takes everything on the freeway. If they have, like they have, we've assisted them numerous times on Bottom Loop, on North Coburg Road. You know, pretty much anything north of the river to the county line, they need help with, we help them often. Sometimes those send their own deputy. It depends on the nature of the call and the urgency behind it. And then probably last for the overview is traffic enforcement. So Coburg works hard on traffic safety. As you can see on those stats, we wrote 1,088 citations into Coburg and Harrisburg municipal courts. The biggest issue that I've received complaints for historically has been traffic and pedestrian safety. Same thing when I was in Junction City, same thing in Harrisburg. So we address that head on. And the officers are very, very, very active. You compare officers 3-4 times our size, we're writing more citations and doing more traffic enforcement than they are. And I know that because the STOP program, statistical transparency, the policing tracks all of the traffic stop data forms that we do. I can see other jurisdictions and see how many tickets they write. We are far and above the majority of them, even other ones in Lane County that are bigger than us. We put a big emphasis on that. We know that we had the traffic safety ad hoc committee. We know pedestrian safety, traffic safety is super important. We put a big emphasis on that. And I think you can see by those stats, that's a lot of traffic. And you get a lot of red and blue lights that kind of, you know, people see red and blue lights in your town. I mean, it deters other crimes just by the positive patrol, visible patrol out there in the community.
Well, I think most people do that when they see a police officer. Oh, I better slow down.
Hopefully, that's why we tried to be out there. So that's kind of a recap for 2025. As you can see by the monthly reports, we do this kind of stuff all the time. That's just kind of a recap of our 2025 overview.
Thank you so much. I don't expect any of us to remember all of the statistics, but I think it is important that we share with our community members how much our police force does. And particularly as we look at this public safety support fee, I expect people won't be thrilled with another fee. I fully expect that. But these sorts of statistics and the good things that you do in our community make this community such a safe place to live and such a desirable place.
I think it's pretty livable, and I measure the livability by, well, lack of crime, but also how you see it during the summer. You see tons of people walking their dog and using the parks. It's because they feel safe, and that's the goal. That's what we want. We try to keep it that way.
Counselor
Yeah, I
Engelbrechtson.
just want to say again, like Chief Larson, how thankful I am for you and your staff, your officers and your reserve officers. I just think I'm so happy that you're here. I really appreciate your professionalism and just a genuine concern for people, which is so wonderful, and that's the way it should be, and it's really noticeable to me. Like with some of the programs that you do with the Chet, and also just being proactive and building community building and prevention, working with the school kids and everything. I just really appreciate your good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was walking, I walk every day but I happened to talk to a couple of community members that are big walkers, and they were telling me that they talk to other people walking around Coburg, and they're finding people come from all over to walk in Coburg. They had just met a person that drives up from Cottage Grove to walk in Coburg, because it's so safe and such a comfortable place.
If you talk to people around the park during the summer, you'll see they come from Eugene to eat their lunch out here in Coburg. And I've also have some homeless people who say the same thing, which they feel safer in Coburg than they do Eugene.
Well, yeah.
Which is a good thing too.
Yeah,
it-
it
yeah.
is a good thing.
Mhm.
It's-
Same. Yes. So thank you. I think that what you do is extremely important, and as Counselor Engelbrechtson said, it is much appreciated.
Thank you.
Anything else? Oh, we have the liaison updates and council comments. So in your, well, we don't have it in your packet. I have it. So I think for this year, my recommendation would be to leave the liaison appointments as they are, unless someone has a burning desire to change their assignment. I think many of these committees and commissions, it takes over a year to figure out what's going on. I know when I was the liaison to Planning Commission, it was certainly into the year before I understood what some of the language and some of the issues that were pressing. So if somebody has a different request, certainly let me know individually, but otherwise I'll just leave them as they are. Okay, any liaison updates from any of you? Anything happening in your committees or commissions that you want to share with us?
The finance audit, we just kind of had a preview of the audit, and then some discussion on the annual city financial report. We get kind of a preview before it comes to council, but that's about it.
And good discussion, I think.
I know jotted down a couple things. We have our next LANAC meeting actually tomorrow night. So it's been a little while, but there's a couple of bills that are up in Salem right now related to transportation that are I kind of look at them as low hanging fruit. So hopefully, I think they would be good and hopefully they'll pass. One of them is they want to require a CIP, capital improvement plan, or is that it? Capital improvement project list for Oregon transportation projects. So that seemed like a good idea. Because of course, and just to back up a little bit, the Oregon Transportation Department is having a terrible issue with their budget shortfall.
I have a report on
very-
that too
very
from MPC.
Serious issue, yeah, so, and then another thing along with that, I don't know how this will go, but they wanted also the, Oregon Department of Transportation to inform the Oregon Transportation Commission, which is part of the legislature, if I'm not mistaken, every time they're going to request a bond. And I think it's kind of just to
makes
make
sense.
sure that they're aware of what's going on, and it kind of goes hand in hand with that CIP list. So those are positive movements, even though they don't help with the budget, but at least they work on some of that financial transparency and financial tools that people can be using.
Accountability, and I know that's been a question in many people's minds. Mr. Lehman?
Nope.
Well,
No, we meet tomorrow.
I have continually tried to get in touch with OTD with a spectacular lack of success. They never did respond to the email inquiry that I sent, and I suspect that is due to the transportation bill fiasco. I've been very generous in kind of letting it lie, but I think it's time, now that the new year has started, to send another follow-up, and I will do that. I intend to stay on it. It's going to be a longer term project anyway, but and this is nobody's fault. I've just been sort of disappointed that this has fallen off the radar to some degree. No one's at fault. Just one of those disappointing things that happens.
I suspect you're right with the funding being
Yes.
so up in the air that no one really has answers, so, but getting that information back would be helpful. I'm sorry, we don't have answers, and we'll get back to you as soon as we do.
Also, and this isn't a liaison update, but I took the initiative to correspond with Michael Martin from League of Oregon Cities. He said there is a particular bill, and I'll dig up the number and report back, that would be helpful for small cities like us. And he encouraged me, and by extension all of us, to get in contact with our state legislators in regards to that bill, particularly Senator Haynes, since it starts in the Senate.
Maybe the TLT.
I believe that is the, well, there's several, and Mike, I correspond with them regularly. I'm on the Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Committee. So I think the one you're referring to that is most in the short session right now, there is a TLT, transient lodging tax adjustment that they're thinking might make it through. It was one that died at the full last session. But I think the one that they're working on is a bill that sets a cap for small cities on the amount of a match to state and federal funds.
Yes, I believe that's it.
So,
Like I said, I'll dig out the number and report back. I just don't have it off the
Yep.
top of my head, but
so I provided comment when it was making its way last time in the full session. We provided I provided some commentary and some actual draft edit language. Not sure that it made it in there. And I'm not sure how fruitful, it'll end up being, but the objective is to say that when you're a small city, a 10% match on a $5 million project or $10 million project is a barrier, and it's a barrier that is hard to overcome. And so not to say, hey, let us out of having a match, but saying, hey, there's a 10% match, but there's a cap somewhere, 10% or 100,000 or 10% or some, I can't remember what the language was, but that's the intention of that bill, is to assist small governments in not having the match be quite as significant of a barrier to access to funds for projects.
Counselor Smith?
I was not at the last Parks meeting, but weather permitting will be at the next one with hopefully an update. And I'm sure Adam, if there was anything perking with Parks, would be able to fill you in.
Do you have anything, Adam?
Well, I'd have to admit that Brian handled that meeting for me, so I wasn't there either. I did get a recap. No, everything is well. That's next week, so we'll be diving in on more of the conceptual design discussion and getting to like a 30% plan concept for the new neighborhood park. So that's probably going to take up the next several, aside from some of the regular
Yes.
operational business that we do. But that's probably the number one item for Park and Tree, and then that'll build out towards the full community engagement in mid-late summer.
Well, I'll add on to what Counselor Engelbrechtson already started in terms of transportation. I sit on the Metropolitan Policy Commission, and we met on the 5th of February, and they're looking at, they have a list of funding of $25 million, and the list is already approved. So as Mr. Hanks mentioned earlier, we need to get our requests in early if we're going to even be considered for any funding out of this. And this came from their Transportation Improvement Plan, the TIP funding. A lot of acronyms that I struggle with sometimes. As Councilor Engelbrechtson said, ODOT is facing a $242 million shortfall at this point. So they will do $70 million worth of cuts, and they will do $70 million worth of layoffs, and they will do $70 million more layoffs. So that's very significant. They are looking at how to preserve core services. Does this sound a little familiar to us? Core services, yes. And they're looking at the CIP and the statewide transportation improvement plan and making that more public. They're reviewing capital projects and sharing those with the legislature. So and as they look at the CIP, they're adding midway funding. They're increasing their screening criteria. They're trying to balance to include all communities and groups. So instead of, I think many of us that don't live in the Portland metro area go, well, all of the funding goes up there. Well, yes, that is our largest metropolitan area, but there is a whole state, and we all are cognizant of that. So I think they're looking at that too. Projects from the acts will have better input from them, better reporting. They're focusing on safety and mobility and access, and try how to sustain that. And really looking to the acts to help them set priorities in transportation funding. So I expect the ACT meetings will get more active, more interesting.
We had a little lull there for a bit.
So that's just, and again, I don't know if it helps anybody else, but it always helps me to know that we're not alone in looking at funding. It is a statewide issue. It is a federal issue. And there are many changes yet coming from the federal government, and those will all have a trickle down. That's it for me. Anybody else got anything else to say? Otherwise, I will adjourn the meeting at, let's see, 8:19.